Welcome to Part 2 of the Summary of War by Robert Greene. If you missed Part 1, you can watch it by clicking the link in the description below. To make the most of this video, download the blueprint for a hands-on summary and actionable steps. It's all ready for you. Now, let's dive in. After mastering the foundations in Parts 1, 2, and 3, you're now ready to take the offensive. Welcome to Part 4. Offensive warfare is about taking the initiative, striking first, and staying unpredictable to keep your opponent on the defensive. By acting proactively, you control the pace and force others to react to you. Strategy 12. Lose battles but win the war, the grand strategy. Alexander the Great offers one of the best examples of grand strategy. During his campaign against the Persian Empire, he didn't merely chase after their armies or engage in aimless conquests. Instead, he systematically captured key Mediterranean ports, crippling the Persian navy without ever directly confronting it. This approach wasn't obvious at first. It seemed disconnected, but by the time his enemies realized what was happening, their naval power was gone, and Alexander had gained complete control of the region's seas. Make your moves with the big picture in mind. Focus on what matters most in the long run, even if it doesn't make sense to others in the moment. Most people focus on winning in the short term, obsessed with immediate results. But true success lies in something far greater: grand strategy. This strategy isn't about the small wins, it's about building toward a long-term goal that eclipses any minor losses along the way. To master this strategy, you need to think several steps ahead, craft a plan with patience, and resist the temptation to react impulsively. Grand strategy has 4 main principles. First, focus on your greater goal, your destiny. Every grand strategist starts with clarity about their ultimate purpose. So, ask yourself, what is your overarching goal in life? What direction do your talents and passions naturally point toward? Visualize this goal every day. Imagine what achieving it looks and feels like. The more detailed your vision, the stronger your motivation will be. But your goals must be realistic. If they are unattainable, you'll become discouraged. Conversely, if they are too small, you'll lose interest. Aim high, but stay grounded in reality. Second, widen your perspective. Think beyond immediate obstacles to anticipate future challenges and opportunities. Third, sever the roots. Understand what motivates your enemy and where their power truly lies. Instead of engaging in endless back-and-forth struggles, identify the foundation of their strength. Ask yourself, what motivates them? Where do they derive their power? Money, influence, reputation? Focus on undermining these roots, rather than attacking symptoms. By weakening the foundation, you achieve victory indirectly and with less resistance. Fourth, take the indirect route. The greatest danger you face in strategy is losing the initiative and finding yourself constantly reacting to what the other side does. But also, direct approaches often backfire because they alert others to your intentions. When your plans are obvious, people can prepare for them. Instead, aim to keep your true purpose hidden. Use subtle, indirect methods that disorient and confuse them. This keeps you in control, forcing others to react to you while you move closer to your goal undetected. The essence of grand strategy is this: short-term losses are acceptable if they contribute to long-term victory. Think of setbacks as stepping stones. Each move should align with your ultimate goal, even if it means temporarily appearing to lose. Strategy 13. Know your enemy, the intelligence strategy. Prince Metternich used keen psychological observation to exploit Napoleon's weaknesses. Through subtle manipulation, he arranged Napoleon's marriage to Marie-Louise, which destabilized him personally. Later, Metternich's strategic intelligence helped orchestrate the events leading to Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo. Success lies in understanding not just yourself, but also your rivals. Observing others with precision and crafting strategies based on this insight gives you unparalleled power. To succeed in business, relationships, or negotiations, you need to master the art of understanding others. The ability to read people gives you a critical advantage, allowing you to anticipate moves, exploit weaknesses, and outmaneuver competition. Here's how to master the intelligence strategy. First, observe during moments of crisis. Crises reveal people's true character. Under pressure, they either expose their weaknesses or try so hard to hide them that their facade cracks. Use these moments to uncover their real motivations and vulnerabilities. Second, diversify your sources. Never rely on a single source of information, no matter how trustworthy it may seem. It's too risky and often biased, as it makes you vulnerable to manipulation. Gather insights from multiple angles to form a complete and accurate picture. Third, adapt to change. People evolve. If you cling to outdated assumptions, you'll fall behind. Stay dynamic and continually update your understanding of others, knowing they may not react the same way twice. Fourth, target the mind, not just actions. True power comes from understanding how someone thinks. Focus on the psychology behind their decisions rather than their resources or behavior. When you understand their motivations, you can guide them toward decisions that serve your interests. Once you've mastered the tools of intelligence, the next step is uncovering the hidden side of your target, their shadow. This shadow contains their true vulnerabilities, the insecurities, impulses, and desires they try to hide. By revealing these weaknesses, you gain the ultimate advantage. Here's how to do it. First, expose the shadow. Get close to your target, both physically and psychologically. People reveal their true selves when they feel comfortable or superior. Pay attention to subtle behaviors, offhand remarks, and moments when their guard is down. Their vulnerabilities often show in the smallest cracks of behavior. Second, identify critical weaknesses. Once the shadow is exposed, focus on the flaws that can destabilize them: an uncontrollable temper, a need for flattery, overconfidence, or insecurity. Third, use their shadow against them. Once you understand someone's vulnerabilities, use them strategically to manipulate their decisions. Play on their fears, provoke emotional reactions, or bait them into decisions that ultimately weaken their position. The most effective way to study someone is by getting close. Through apparent friendliness or subservience, you can observe their true nature. People are more likely to reveal their weaknesses when they feel at ease or superior to you. Once you have this insight, you hold the key to controlling the situation. Everyone has vulnerabilities. By observing and analyzing their motivations, you can uncover their hidden flaws and insecurities. Once exposed, these vulnerabilities can become your most potent weapon in gaining the upper hand. The closer you follow them, the more they will unknowingly reveal. Strategy 14. Overwhelm resistance with speed and suddenness, the blitzkrieg strategy. In 1218, Genghis Khan demonstrated the power of speed and suddenness. He segmented his forces for maximum mobility, purposely lost minor battles to create a false sense of security for his enemies, and then unleashed rapid, decisive attacks that they couldn't anticipate. His ability to dictate the pace of battle and exploit surprise allowed him to dominate seemingly stronger foes. In strategy, speed isn't just about moving quickly, it's about acting decisively and unexpectedly to overwhelm your opponents. By setting the pace, disorienting your rivals, and exploiting the element of surprise, you can secure victory before they even know what hit them. This is the essence of the blitzkrieg strategy. Here's how to apply this strategy effectively. First, use speed strategically, not recklessly. Speed is effective only when deliberate and calculated. Start by analyzing your opponent's weaknesses and tendencies. Strike when you're prepared, focusing on areas they're least ready to defend. Second, lure your opponent into complacency. Maximize surprise by making your opponent think you're slower or less capable than you are. A false sense of security lowers their guard, leaving them vulnerable. For example, Muhammad Ali's rope-a-dope strategy in boxing made his opponents believe he was tired. When the moment was right, he counterattacked with a flurry of punches, turning the fight in his favor. Third, deliver the unanticipated blow. The most effective attacks come from unexpected directions. Once your opponent reels from your first strike, hit them again, but from a different angle. This creates psychological shock, often more damaging than the attack itself. For example, in chess, grandmasters sacrifice pieces to lure opponents into traps, then execute rapid, calculated moves to secure victory. Fourth, balance speed with precision. While speed can overwhelm, moving too quickly without planning leads to mistakes and expose you to counterattacks. Ensure that every action is aligned with your overall strategy. For example, in Formula One, drivers balance speed with strategy, ensuring that tire management, pit stops, and track conditions all align. Without this balance, speed alone leads to crashes. Speed, when wielded strategically, becomes a force multiplier. It disrupts your opponent's rhythm, exposes their weaknesses, and forces them into mistakes. Velocity creates an aura of vitality and decisiveness. It rallies allies, intimidates rivals, and establishes your position as a dominant force. By controlling the pace and delivering unanticipated blows, you can achieve unparalleled success in any arena, be it business, relationships, or life. Strategy 15. Control the dynamic, the forcing strategies. Let's start with a lesson from Erwin Rommel, the German general known as the Desert Fox. In 1942, during World War II, Rommel fought the British in the North African deserts. Despite having smaller forces, he kept his units constantly on the move, staying one step ahead of the enemy. Rommel even joined the front lines himself to reduce delays between action and information. By keeping the British reacting to his moves, he controlled the pace of the battle and shaped it entirely on his terms. The key takeaway? Assert control. You need to force your opponent into a reactive state. Make them respond to you instead of the other way around. And here's the kicker. Failing to recognize your own control is just as bad as losing it. Never let the opponent set the pace or call the shots. Real control isn't about micromanaging every little thing. It's about shaping the bigger picture, the emotions, mindset, and decisions of those around you. A skilled strategist knows you can't predict every move, but you can create an environment where your opponent's actions don't matter. Control can come in two forms. Aggressive control, by relentlessly pushing your opponent back. Passive control, by letting them feel secure, only to lead them into traps. The real magic happens when you blend both, hitting, baiting, retreating, and overwhelming in perfect harmony. Here's how to master the art of control in any situation. First, keep your enemy on their heels. Strike first and strike hard. A bold, unexpected move throws your opponent off balance and forces them to react. Once you've got the upper hand, keep the pressure on. And here's a pro tip. Change the battlefield. Opponents are strongest on familiar ground. Move the fight to a place where they're disoriented and vulnerable. Second, compel them to make mistakes. Confusion and frustration are your secret weapons. When emotions like fear, anger, or desperation take over, people mess up. Your job? Set traps that provoke emotional responses. Let those mistakes build up and lead to their downfall. Third, assume passive control. Sometimes the best way to control someone is to let them think they're in charge. When they feel secure, they'll drop their guard. Use that overconfidence to steer them into the traps you've set. For example, in negotiations, give up small concessions to make them feel like they're winning. Meanwhile, subtly guide the conversation toward your end goal. Fourth, master your emotions first. Control starts with you. If you're ruled by anger, fear, or impatience, your opponent will use those emotions against you. Stay calm, deliberate, and always 2 steps ahead. Conquer your fears like fear of failure, fear of bold decisions, fear of judgment. When you're in control of yourself, your options expand, and your ability to dictate the terms of the conflict skyrockets. Mastering control isn't about brute force. It's about shaping the environment, steering emotions, and guiding perceptions. The best strategists don't win through sheer power. They win by ensuring the battle is over before it even begins. Remember this. You set the flow. You keep your adversaries reacting to your moves. Strategy 16, hit them where it hurts, the center of gravity strategy. In 209 before the Common Era, Publius Scipio led a bold campaign to capture Nova Carthago, the Carthaginian capital in Spain. This city was essential to Hannibal's war effort, acting as the supply hub for his legendary armies. Scipio knew that by destroying this lifeline, he could deal a devastating blow to Hannibal. His strategy worked. Within 5 years, Scipio not only captured Carthage, but also ended Hannibal's campaign, changing the course of history. Everything has a center of gravity, which is a focal point of strength. If you can seize or destroy it, you destabilize the entire structure. Whether it's cutting off supply lines, dismantling a belief system, or disrupting command chains, success lies in precision and focus. Everyone relies on something critical to their strength. The key to mastering this strategy is identifying and exploiting that dependency. Here's how you can identify and exploit it. First, to identify the center of gravity, you need to look beneath the surface. What lies at the heart of your rival's power? Often, it's not what's obvious. Their true source of strength is usually hidden beneath the surface: resources, reputation, or influence. Dig deeper to uncover it. Second, analyze the structure and the culture of your target. For groups or organizations, the center of gravity often lies in their ability to communicate and coordinate. Disrupting these elements creates confusion and disarray. For individuals, it's about understanding their psychology and priorities. For example, during World War II, the Allies targeted German railways and communication systems, crippling the Nazi war machine by disrupting their ability to coordinate and supply their forces. Third, expose abstract centers of gravity. Power isn't always tied to tangible assets. Abstract qualities like reputation, public trust, or unpredictability can be just as critical. Undermining these can cause devastating effects. Understanding and targeting the center of gravity is about precision and efficiency. Instead of spreading your energy across minor vulnerabilities, focus on what truly matters. Strategy 17. Defeat them in detail, the divide and conquer strategy. In 490 before the Common Era, the Persians landed on the plains of Marathon near Athens. Their plan? Split their forces at night and attack Athens by sea. The Greeks noticed this vulnerability and struck the remaining Persians on land, quickly seizing the opportunity. The soldiers ran 24 miles back to Athens to defend the city from the Persian fleet and secure a decisive victory. Prevent enemies from uniting, and strike isolated targets to dismantle their strength. Here's how to master this timeless approach. First, find the weak points. The weakest part of any structure is its joints, where separate elements connect. Within any group, these could be conflicting values, hidden resentments, or competing priorities. When analyzing your opponents, focus on what holds them together. By exploiting cracks in their unity, you can destabilize their foundation from within. Second, occupy the center to force division. Seizing control of the center, whether it's a physical position, a key idea, or a leadership role, forces your opponent to spread their resources thin, weakening their unity. Third, sever connections to the past. A group's strength often comes from its traditions, habits, or loyalties. If you isolate individuals from these ties, you can weaken their unity and open the door to change. The idea is to break the emotional or ideological ties that connect people to their foundation, making them more vulnerable to influence. Why focus on tactics? Strategies are only as good as their execution. The next step is understanding how to translate the divide and conquer approach into practical, actionable moves. These tactics ensure the strategy works on both external and internal levels. First, sow dissension and doubt. Plant seeds of mistrust within the group. Highlight disagreements or conflicting interests to create internal friction. Second, use flattery and subtle contradiction. Earn trust by initially agreeing with your enemy, then gradually introduce doubts or conflicting ideas that cause them to question their stance. This subtle manipulation creates internal conflict and weakens their resolve. Third, divide their minds. Encourage your opponent to doubt their beliefs or strategies. A mind filled with doubt is incapable of decisive action. The divide and conquer approach operates on two levels. Externally, break the unity of an organization, army, or group by exploiting divisions among its members. Internally, break mental cohesion by introducing doubt and inner conflict. When facing a powerful opponent, remember this: their greatest strength often lies in their unity. Your job is to uncover and exploit their weakest connections. Whether you create divisions physically, emotionally, or ideologically, the result is the same: a fragmented and vulnerable enemy. By dismantling their unity piece by piece, you gain control with less effort and greater success. Strategy 18. Expose and attack your opponent's soft flank. The turning strategy. In 1796, during the Italian campaigns, Napoleon Bonaparte executed one of his most brilliant maneuvers. Austrian General Baron Alvinci fell for Napoleon's deception, advancing recklessly when Napoleon pretended to retreat. Napoleon baited him into exposing a vulnerable flank. Then, with precision, he struck hard, surrounding and crushing the Austrian forces. When you're up against a strong opponent, a head-on attack is rarely the answer. Why? Because their defenses will be strongest where they expect you to confront them. Instead, the turning strategy teaches us to use deception. Bait your opponent into overextending, exposing their weak side, and then strike decisively. To master the turning strategy, first, avoid direct confrontation. A frontal assault often wastes your resources and strengthens your opponent's defenses. Instead, redirect their focus. Create a distraction where they're prepared, then maneuver toward their vulnerable side. For example, in negotiations, if someone is stubbornly defending their main argument, subtly shift the conversation toward a secondary point they aren't prepared to protect. Second, exploit their obvious strength. Ironically, when someone leans too heavily on their strengths, they often neglect other areas. Overconfidence in one domain exposes weaknesses elsewhere. For example, a competitor bragging about their product's innovation might be neglecting customer service, a weakness you can exploit. Third, bait them into overextending. Patience is key here. Let your opponent believe they're winning. Feign weakness or compliance, drawing them further out of position. Once they're overextended, strike where their defenses are weakest. For example, asking pointed questions can lure your opponent into overcommitting emotionally. The more reckless they become, the easier it is to expose their flaws. Fourth, disguise your true intentions. A successful flanking maneuver requires subtlety. Your first move should never reveal your end goal. By keeping your intentions hidden, you keep your opponent guessing, reducing their ability to respond effectively. For example, in chess, controlling the center of the board disguises your plan to attack from the sides, leaving your opponent vulnerable. The turning strategy is about precision and timing. By baiting your opponent into exposing their weaknesses and striking when they least expect it, you can turn even the strongest rival into an easy target. Mastering this approach requires patience, observation, and the ability to think several moves ahead. With this strategy, even the strongest rival can be turned into an easy target. Strategy 19. Envelop the enemy, the annihilation strategy. In 1879, during the Zulu-British conflict in Natal, the Zulu warriors demonstrated the devastating power of envelopment. Using their deep knowledge of the terrain, they launched relentless surprise attacks that didn't just trap the British forces physically, they broke their morale. The British were left panicked and vulnerable, proving that true envelopment is as much psychological as it is physical. Picture this: an opponent surrounded, cut off from their resources, alliances shattered, and with nowhere to run. Encirclement isn't just about trapping someone physically, it's about breaking their will to fight before you even deliver the final blow. To master this strategy, you must blend relentless pressure, psychological manipulation, and precise encirclement. The goal isn't just about physical domination, it's about breaking your opponent mentally and emotionally before delivering the final blow. Here's how. First, encircle strategically. Begin by isolating your opponent. Identify their critical connections, resources, alliances, or escape routes, and systematically cut them off. The goal is to isolate them from the support systems they rely on, creating a sense of vulnerability and helplessness. For example, during Napoleon's invasion of Russia, the Russians used a scorched earth policy, destroying food supplies and infrastructure. This deprived Napoleon's forces the resources they needed to survive, leaving them isolated in a hostile environment and leading to devastating losses. Second, apply relentless pressure. Once you've cut off their resources, attack from multiple angles to keep them disoriented and unable to regroup. Constant pressure weakens their resolve and prevents them from planning their next move. Third, tighten the noose gradually. Avoid an immediate direct confrontation. Instead, slowly increase pressure, leaving your opponent with fewer and fewer options. The gradual tightening of restrictions builds frustration and helplessness, weakening their will to resist. Fourth, exploit panic and isolation. As your opponent begins to feel trapped, they'll panic. Desperation leads to irrational decisions, which you can exploit to your advantage. Push them further into the psychological state until they're completely vulnerable. Fifth, maintain the illusion of control. One of the most effective tools in this strategy is letting your opponent believe they still have options. This false sense of control delays resistance, keeping them calm while you complete the trap. By the time they realize the truth, it's already too late. First, encirclement isn't just physical, it's psychological warfare. When someone feels surrounded, they lose composure, confidence, and, eventually, the will to fight. The fear of having no escape can cause them to surrender long before the final blow is struck. Second, encirclement is about inevitability. When executed correctly, it ensures victory without prolonged conflict. By isolating your opponent, applying constant pressure, and manipulating their perception, you dominate them before the fight even begins. Strategy 20, maneuver them into weakness, the ripening for the sickle strategy. Bokuden, a legendary samurai, mastered the art of winning without hands. Once, a young swordsman challenged him to a duel. Bokuden proposed they fight on an isolated island. Eager to prove himself, the swordsman agreed and rowed to the island. But as soon as he stepped ashore, Bokuden pushed the boat back into the water, stranding his challenger. Without drawing his sword, Bokuden had already won. Outsmart your rivals. Avoid unnecessary risks by using calculated moves that give you control. Strength alone doesn't guarantee victory. Strategy does. No matter how strong you are, fighting endless battles with people is exhausting and wasteful. The art of maneuver ensures you conserve resources while positioning your opponent into inevitable defeat. It's not about overpowering your rival, but about setting the stage so that victory comes effortlessly. Here's how you can master it. First, create a position of weakness. Success begins with preparation. Study your opponent thoroughly. Analyze their strengths, weaknesses, and anticipate how they might react. Use this insight to lead them into positions where they're at their weakest, where every option left is a bad one. For example, in chess, a fork attack forces your opponent to choose between two equally bad options, losing a valuable piece or leaving their defenses exposed. Second, present dilemmas, not problems. Problems have solutions. Dilemmas, however, trap your opponent in lose-lose situations. Lure them out of strong positions by offering bait they can't resist. Force them to act prematurely or retreat in embarrassment. Third, stay mobile and flexible. The chaos of conflict rarely allows for rigid plans to succeed. Adaptability is key. Design a plan with branches such as alternative paths that let you pivot when circumstances change. Maneuvering often reveals cracks in your opponent's strategy. Be ready to capitalize on them. Fourth, create chaos and disorder. Predictability is your enemy. If your opponent knows your moves, they'll counter them. Instead, use misdirection to create confusion, keeping them on edge and unable to plan effectively. Maneuvering is about controlling the battlefield before the fight even begins. By luring your opponent into a position of weakness, you ensure victory without unnecessary conflict. Master adaptability, misdirection, and foresight to turn every conflict into a foregone conclusion. Strategy 21. Negotiate while advancing. The diplomatic war strategy. In 359, before the Common Era, Philip II of Macedonia, the father of Alexander the Great, inherited a divided and weakened kingdom. Greece's powerful city-states, like Athens, refused to recognize his rule. Yet, Philip's approach was ingenious. While preaching peace and unity, he quietly fortified his position, forming alliances, growing his military, and expanding his influence. His charm and diplomacy masked his relentless ambition. By the time his enemies understood his true intent, it was too late. Philip's strategy was crystal clear. Talk peace while you strengthen your position. By the time others catch on, your dominance is already cemented. This approach allows you to avoid immediate conflict while ensuring long-term progress. This strategy is about advancing your goals under the guise of cooperation. Diplomacy isn't about fairness. It's a tool to gain leverage. Here's how you can implement it effectively. First, keep advancing. Always ensure your position improves before and during negotiations. Progress puts pressure on your opponent, forcing them to accept your terms. Second, appear reasonable. Pair bold demands with minor concessions to create the illusion of fairness. This keeps opponents engaged while maintaining control. Third, create a reputation for toughness. A disciplined and firm reputation makes people think twice before opposing you. If they know you're not easily swayed, they're more likely to accept your terms without prolonged resistance. Like Philip II of Macedonia, masterful negotiation lies in controlling the narrative, holding your ground, and advancing without pause. Strategy 22. Know how to end things. The exit strategy. Let me take you back to 1937. Lyndon Johnson had just won a tough congressional seat in Texas. His opponents were strong and the battle was fierce. Yet, after his victory, Johnson didn't gloat or alienate those who fought against him. Instead, he did something remarkable. He showed humility. He thanked his supporters, extended a hand to his rivals, and focused on healing wounds. This wasn't just about being nice, it was about securing his future. Johnson's approach solidified his position and turned former enemies into potential allies. Show humility in victory. Let emotions cool, and make sure that everyone can live with the outcome. A good ending isn't just about the win, it's about how you leave the battlefield. How you exit defines your legacy. A messy, drawn-out ending can stain your reputation for years, while a clean, decisive finish preserves relationships and leaves doors open for future opportunities. Think about it. Whether it's in war, business, or personal life, dragging out an ending does more harm than good. It drains resources, damages morale, and breeds resentment. The best endings are swift, deliberate, and leave behind respect, not regrets. A successful exit isn't just about finishing, it's about finishing well. Here's how you do it. First, plan your exit from the start. Before you even act, ask yourself, how will this end? What's your goal? Where do you want to stand when it's over? Without a clear exit plan, you risk being drawn into endless conflicts or leaving behind unresolved bitterness. Second, end decisively. When it's time to go, don't hesitate. Deliver a clean final blow or cut your losses quickly. Prolonging an ending wastes time, energy, and resources. Worse, it leaves scars that may never heal. Third, leave them wanting more. Leave on a high note when people are still energized and excited about you. That way, they'll remember you positively and want more of what you have to offer. Fourth, lose strategically. Sometimes you can't win. That's life. But even in defeat, you can leave with dignity, show resilience, handle loss with grace, and fight until the very end. People respect strength even in failure. Whether it's a battle, a relationship, or a project, your exit is what people remember. It's not just about what you've won, it's about how you finish. A sloppy ending can tarnish even the greatest victories, but a clean, decisive exit ensures you leave behind respect, not resentment. We've reached the final part of the book, unconventional or dirty warfare. This is where deception, manipulation, and political cunning take center stage. When strength isn't enough, dirty warfare becomes a powerful equalizer. Robert Greene explores the use of surprise, subversion, and strategy to outsmart and destabilize your enemies. Victory here is about being smarter, not stronger. Strategy 23. Weave a seamless blend of fact and fiction. The misperception strategies. During World War II, the Allies executed one of history's most successful deception campaigns before the D-Day invasion at Normandy. They created a fake army in England, complete with inflatable tanks, fake radio chatter, and even a lookalike for General Montgomery operating far from the real action. Why? To convince Hitler that the invasion would happen somewhere else. The result? Hitler diverted resources and delayed his response, giving the Allies the critical edge they needed to succeed. This is the power of blending fact and fiction. You cloud your enemy's judgment while maintaining clarity of your own. To control your enemy, you must control their understanding of the world. Deception is not about elaborate lies. It's about carefully curating appearances so that your opponent's assumptions work against them. The goal is to create confusion, make them see what you want them to see, and drive them to act on misperceptions. Every creature relies on its ability to perceive its surroundings to survive. By making it hard for your enemies to know what's going on around them, you weaken their ability to act effectively. Let's break down the 6 main forms of deception and how to use them. First, exploit emotional filters. People interpret the world through their emotions, desires, fears, and expectations. Use this to your advantage by feeding them the reality they want to see. For example, make a weak position seem strong to deter attacks, or present a strong position as weak to bait your opponent into a trap. In life, allow others to overestimate their own superiority, lulling them into false confidence while you quietly prepare your next move. Second, keep deception subtle and realistic. Here, you deliberately appear weaker than you are, to provoke overconfidence or aggression. For instance, you might downplay your skills or intentions until it's time to strike. Third, camouflage yourself. Camouflage works in 2 ways. First, make yourself invisible by blending into your environment. Don't draw attention, and avoid giving away anything significant in your behavior. Second, mirror the beliefs or actions of those around you to deflect suspicion. In life, this could mean adopting the attitudes of a group to stay under the radar until you're ready to act. Fourth, play with patterns. Humans naturally seek patterns because this is how we make sense of the world. Use this to your advantage by creating predictable behaviors that lead others to think they've figured you out. Then, when they least expect it, break the pattern. In warfare, this might involve faking repeated attacks at one location, then suddenly striking elsewhere. The element of surprise will leave your enemy reeling. Fifth, plant misinformation. People trust what they discover more than what they're told. Take advantage of this by feeding false information through third parties who believe it themselves. This tactic increases credibility because your enemy feels they uncovered the truth on their own. The deeper they dig into your deception, the more convinced they'll become. Sixth, shadows within shadows. Deception becomes truly powerful when it layers ambiguity upon ambiguity. If your enemy knows you're playing tricks, they'll resist obvious ploys. So you must make the truth so blurry they can't tell fact from fiction. Instead of presenting a simple illusion, cast multiple layers of shadows. This forces your opponent to second-guess everything, leaving them paralyzed by doubt. This strategy reminds us that perception shapes reality. By skillfully blending fact and fiction, you can influence how others see the world and force them into decisions that benefit you. But remember, deception is an art. It must be subtle, realistic, and adaptable to the situation. Master this, and you won't just control the battlefield, you'll control the minds of your enemies. Strategy 24. Take the line of least expectation, the ordinary extraordinary strategy. In the art of war, unpredictability is one of the most powerful tools. Hannibal, one of history's greatest military minds, demonstrated this during the Second Punic War. In 218 before the Common Era, Hannibal lured the Roman army into a devastating trap, with behavior so unexpected it left them disoriented. He baited them into crossing the icy waters of the Trebia River only to unleash his war elephants, a terrifying weapon completely outside their expectations. Great advantage lies in breaking your opponent's mental models. People build expectations based on patterns, your past behavior, societal norms, or conventional thinking. When you defy those expectations, you destabilize them. In the chaos that follows, their defenses crumble, leaving you with the upper hand. Human beings are naturally wired to predict future behavior by observing patterns. If you act as expected, it becomes easy for others to anticipate and counter your moves. But by disrupting those patterns, you take away their ability to plan, leaving them vulnerable. Here's how you can master this strategy. First, start with the ordinary, then strike with the extraordinary. Set a baseline with something they expect to see. Then, pivot suddenly to the extraordinary. The stark contrast between the two creates shock and confusion. The more extreme the difference, the greater the impact. Second, operate outside your opponent's experience. Study your opponent's habits, patterns, and past actions. Then craft a move that is completely outside their realm of experience. If they can't anticipate it, they can't defend against it. Third, act crazy, like a fox. At times, deliberate unpredictability can be a weapon. When your actions seem irrational or random, it unsettles people. Humans are deeply uncomfortable with uncertainty, so acting erratically makes others hesitant and cautious, giving you the upper hand. Fourth, break your own patterns. Even a successful strategy becomes predictable if you use it too often. Constantly evolve and adapt, forcing your opponents to second-guess everything about you. If they can't pin you down, they can't stop you. Unpredictability is a force multiplier. By breaking patterns and defying expectations, you force others to question everything they know about you and themselves. In this chaos, their ability to think and act strategically collapses. Master this, and you turn unpredictability into your most devastating weapon. Strategy 25. Occupy the moral high ground, the righteous strategy. In the early 16th century, Martin Luther, a German priest, stood boldly against Pope Leo X. The Pope was selling indulgences, which essentially allows people to buy forgiveness for their sins. Luther argued that this was wrong, declaring that forgiveness came only from God, not through financial transactions. Using the Bible as his weapon, Luther exposed the church's hypocrisy. By doing so, he claimed the higher moral ground and framed the church as corrupt and unjust. This wasn't just a theological debate. It was a calculated move in moral warfare that reshaped the religious and political landscape of Europe forever. Position yourself as virtuous and frame your opponent as corrupt. Create an us versus them dynamic, where your side represents justice and righteousness. Moral superiority is a powerful weapon, whether you're navigating a political battle, a personal conflict, or even an argument at work. But it's not enough to just have the moral high ground. You need to own it and use it strategically. Here's how you can master this strategy. First, question your opponent's motives. Find and highlight contradictions or hypocrisies in their actions. When you expose how their behavior clashes with their stated values, you damage their credibility. People distrust those who don't practice what they preach, making hypocrisy a devastating weakness to exploit. Second, publicize your cause. Never assume people will automatically recognize the justice of your cause. Promote it loudly and clearly. Use powerful and simple language to create a narrative of good versus evil. Avoid gray areas. They confuse people and weaken emotional responses. Third, position yourself as the underdog. Frame yourself as the one unfairly attacked or oppressed. This will generate sympathy and energize others to support your cause. Fourth, use their words against them. One of the most effective tactics is to quote your opponent's own words back at them. This makes your critique seem objective and fair, while exposing their contradictions. Fifth, anticipate and counter moral attacks. If your opponent launches a moral attack on you, recognize it for what it is. A strategic move, not a reflection of true morality. Counterattack with evidence of their own flaws, shifting the debate back to their integrity. When you do this, you protect your image while putting them on the defensive. For example, During India's struggle for independence, Gandhi didn't fight the British with weapons or violence. He fought them with moral superiority. Through peaceful resistance, he framed Britain as the oppressor, exposing their injustice. This not only rallied Indians to Gandhi's cause, but also turned global opinion against British rule. In any conflict, the moral high ground isn't just a place of defense. It's a strategic weapon. By framing your side as virtuous and your opponent as corrupt, you control the narrative, rally public support, and weaken your adversary's position. When used correctly, this strategy can shift the balance of power in your favor. Strategy 26. Deny them targets. The strategy of the void. In 1812, Napoleon Bonaparte led a massive French army of 450,000 soldiers into Russia. His plan was to crush the Russians in a decisive battle, but the Russians had a different strategy. They avoided large-scale confrontations, retreating deeper into their own territory while burning food, shelter, and supplies along the way. This left Napoleon's army stranded in a hostile environment, with no resources to sustain them during the harsh Russian winter. By the time the French forces limped back home, only 100,000 soldiers remained. The Russian strategy didn't rely on strength. It relied on patience, nature, and the power of emptiness to turn Napoleon's aggression against him. In guerrilla warfare, the mind and morale are the real battlegrounds. Exhaust your enemy, starve them of resources, frustrate them by refusing to give them a clear target. Sometimes the smartest way to win a battle is to not fight, or at least, not in the way your enemy expects. This strategy is about using absence, emptiness, and unpredictability as psychological weapons. Here's how you can master it. First, be elusive and invisible. Avoid direct confrontation. Use small, unpredictable actions to destabilize your opponent. Hit them where they least expect it, then disappear before they can retaliate. Your unpredictability will frustrate them into making mistakes. Second, exploit their aggression. An overly aggressive enemy will often overreach. By denying them a clear target, you force them to waste energy chasing shadows. Their frustration becomes your weapon. Third, use small, tight-knit teams. Large, rigid organizations are slow to adapt. Instead, operate with smaller, highly motivated groups that can act quickly and independently. Even better, infiltrate your opponent's ranks to sow confusion from within. Fourth, make it psychological. This strategy is about breaking your opponent's will. By denying your opponent the satisfaction of a traditional fight, you demoralize them. Let their frustration and exhaustion do the work for you. Fifth, win through attrition. Victory comes either by wearing your opponent down through small, sustained actions or by letting their frustration lead them to self-destruction. Often, the latter is the most efficient path to success. This strategy isn't just for military battles. In relationships, when faced with someone who thrives on confrontation, don't engage directly. Stay calm and refuse to react emotionally. Their aggression will eventually lose its power over you. In the workplace, if a colleague or competitor is trying to provoke you, don't give them the satisfaction. Focus on your own goals while subtly undermining their efforts with strategic, quiet moves. The key is to stay adaptable, patient, and focused. Remember, the absence of action can sometimes be the most devastating action of all. Deny your opponent the fight they're seeking, frustrate them into exhaustion, and let their aggression become their undoing. Strategy 27. Seem to work for the interests of others while furthering your own. The alliance strategy. In 1467, the Duke of Burgundy sought an alliance with England to launch an attack on Louis XI of France. The plan seemed solid, two powerful forces combining to crush a mutual enemy. But Louis, ever the strategist, uncovered the Duke's intentions. Rather than waiting to be cornered, Louis flipped the script. He swiftly allied himself with England, isolating the Duke and leaving him vulnerable. The result? Burgundy was outmaneuvered, and Louis emerged victorious. Strategic alliances can make or break your plans. Choose your partners carefully. Make sure they offer something you can't achieve on your own. But remember, help is rarely offered without strings attached. Treat favors as investments, not charity. Alliances can be powerful tools to amplify your efforts. but they can also backfire if handled poorly. The key is forming partnerships that serve mutual self-interest while positioning yourself to gain the upper hand. Here's how to wield this strategy effectively. First, choose allies strategically. The right partner fills the gaps in your resources, influence, or skills. Don't let emotions or sentiment dictate your choices. Focus on mutual benefits. Second, give to get. Generosity with intent is a game changer. By helping others in meaningful ways, you create a sense of obligation. For example, assisting a colleague on a high-stakes project could pay dividends later when you need their support for a promotion. These calculated acts of goodwill strengthen your influence. Third, sow discord among rivals. While strengthening your alliances, work to destabilize those of your competitors. In a workplace scenario, if two rival teams are vying for the same resources, subtly plant seeds of doubt between them. Share selective information with each side, making them suspicious of one another. While they clash, your position grows stronger. Fourth, play the mediator. Position yourself as the central figure everyone wants on their side. When multiple parties compete for your allegiance, don't commit too quickly. Let them vie for your support, raising your value without tying yourself down. Fifth, stay autonomous. Alliances are tools, not chains. Keep your ultimate goals front and center. If an alliance starts pulling you away from your purpose, be ready to pivot or withdraw. Remember, unpredictability enhances your leverage and keeps others guessing. Now that we've explored how to master the alliance strategy, let's break it down into some practical principles you can apply in any situation. Think of these as the keys to warfare when it comes to forging and maintaining alliances. Recognize that using and being used is a normal part of human interaction. There's no shame in leveraging relationships strategically, as long as you're aware of the trade-offs. A few strong, purposeful alliances are more effective than many weak, directionless ones. A scattered network spreads your focus thin and creates vulnerabilities. Your personal life is where emotions belong. In alliances, focus on logic, strategy, and outcomes. Emotional decisions can lead to false alliances that drain your energy and independence. Break your enemies' alliances by spreading mistrust or tempting their allies to switch sides. Divide and conquer works as well in office politics as it does on the battlefield. By following these principles, you'll not only strengthen your alliances, but also ensure that they remain tools for advancing your goals, not liabilities holding you back. Strategy 28. Give your rivals enough rope to hang themselves. The one-upmanship strategy. In 1635, the French founded l'Académie Française to preserve their language. Among its members was the Bishop of Noyons, a man whose arrogance and inability to collaborate became a liability. Instead of directly confronting him, the Academy took a different approach. They let him deliver a speech, one that exposed his flaws for all to see. His overconfidence blinded him to the humiliation he brought upon himself. Eventually, the bishop left the academy of his own accord. Some individuals are inherently self-destructive. Rather than fight them head-on, give them the freedom to reveal their flaws. As they overreact and hurt their own reputation, you remain blameless and composed. First, understand the two fronts of life. Life's greatest threats don't always come from external enemies. Sometimes they're within your own circle, colleagues and supposed allies who work against you while pretending to support the common cause. Direct confrontation often backfires, making you look aggressive or paranoid. The key is to remain subtle and strategic while letting your rivals destroy themselves. Second, identify your rivals' flaws. Observe their behavior and habits closely. Everyone has blind spots. Maybe they're overly rigid and resist change, or perhaps their ego prevents them from accepting criticism. Recognizing these weaknesses is the first step. Third, sow doubt and insecurity. Use indirect comments or actions to touch on their vulnerabilities. For instance, a simple remark like, "Are you sure this aligns with management's expectations?" can plant seeds of doubt. Your goal is not to attack, but to create discomfort. Fourth, let others amplify the pressure. Instead of doing all the work yourself, leverage group dynamics. Gossip, casual remarks, or others' observations can amplify the insecurities you've planted. This keeps your involvement minimal while increasing their paranoia. Fifth, stand back and watch the self-destruction. Once your rival begins to overreact, making rash decisions, embarrassing mistakes, or defensive comments, step aside. Their behavior will isolate them naturally. Maintain your composure and resist the urge to gloat. Offering insincere support at this stage can even enhance your image. To wrap up, let's distill this strategy into actionable insights. Leverage overconfidence. The most dangerous rivals often have inflated egos or rigid beliefs. Subtle humor or disguised critiques can quietly undermine them. Avoid direct confrontation. Confronting a rival head-on can fuel their determination. Instead, create conditions where they expose their flaws on their own. Protect your reputation. Even as rivals falter, stay calm and supportive on the surface. This reinforces your position as composed and reasonable while highlighting their shortcomings. Not every battle needs to be fought. Sometimes the most effective strategy is to step back and give others the freedom to sabotage themselves. Strategy 29. Take small bites. The fait accompli strategy. In the 1930s, Adolf Hitler used expansionist tactics before World War II. Hitler did not immediately invade Europe. Instead, he took small, calculated steps to expand Germany's influence and territory. He first rebuilt Germany's military in violation of the Treaty of Versailles, then remilitarized the Rhineland, a region France could have contested but chose to avoid conflict. Next, he annexed Austria, claiming it was a unification of German-speaking people. Finally, he claimed the Sudetenland, part of Czechoslovakia, framing his actions as a defensive measure to protect German minorities. Each step seemed minor enough to avoid immediate retaliation, but together, they formed a foundation for domination, a vast empire before the world could stop him. Take small steps to achieve your goals without provoking a strong, unified opposition. The key to this strategy is acting incrementally. Avoid aggressive moves that provoke resistance. Instead, make small gains that others dismiss as trivial. By the time your actions are noticed, they've already solidified into something irreversible. Sometimes bold, flashy actions attract too much attention and backlash. The fait accompli strategy focuses on subtle, incremental moves that are easily overlooked. By the time people realize what you've done, reversing your progress feels too costly or complicated. Here's how to master this approach. First, avoid appearing overly ambitious. Bold, aggressive moves spark envy and distrust. Instead, focus on small, measured actions that seem insignificant. This keeps others at ease while allowing you to build your position gradually. Second, exploit human nature. Most people dislike conflict and are more likely to tolerate minor losses than engage in confrontation. Use this tendency to advance quietly without triggering resistance. Third, act fast and without discussion. Revealing your plans too early invites scrutiny and opposition. Instead, move quickly and decisively, leaving little room for debate. Once your gains are established, others will be forced to accept them. Fourth, frame your actions as defensive. Whenever possible, present your moves as acts of necessity or self-preservation. This minimizes suspicion and makes it harder for others to rally against you. Fifth, disguise your intentions. Use a piecemeal approach to mask your ambitions. If challenged, return a small portion of what you've gained to appear generous and reasonable, while keeping your larger objectives intact. You don't need bold, risky moves to achieve great results. The fait accompli strategy shows the power of small, deliberate steps that accumulate over time. By acting decisively yet subtly, you minimize resistance and ensure your progress becomes irreversible before anyone can oppose it. Strategy 30. Penetrate their minds. The communication strategies. Let's start with a lesson from one of history's greatest tacticians, Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon wasn't just a master on the battlefield, he was also a genius in communication. Instead of issuing cold, generic commands, he used vivid, emotional language to inspire loyalty and action. For instance, he framed his soldiers as saviors of France, appealing to their honor and destiny. But Napoleon's brilliance didn't stop there. He mastered the art of indirect communication. With his generals, he gave the illusion of freedom, allowing them to feel independent while subtly guiding their decisions. This balance of inspiration and control ensured his vision prevailed without micromanagement. The most effective communication is indirect, engaging, and makes people feel like they've arrived at the conclusion on their own. Effective communication isn't just about expressing your ideas. It's about shaping how others think and act. To truly penetrate someone's mind, you need to bypass their defenses and embed your message in a way that feels natural and self-discovered. Preaching or lecturing won't cut it. The real power lies in helping others connect the dots themselves. Here's how you can master this strategy. First, subtlety is key. Direct or forceful communication often triggers resistance. Instead, wrap extraordinary ideas in familiar language or use vivid, emotional storytelling to captivate your audience. If someone seems resistant or inattentive, slip your message in through humor, anecdotes, or relatable examples. Second, evoke emotion. People respond more to emotions than logic. Take your audience back to a simpler mindset, like childhood, when they were more open and less guarded. Use sensory triggers, such as imagery or sound, to bypass rational defenses and create a lasting emotional impact. Third, tailor your message to the audience. Different groups require different approaches. Bored or distracted people? Use humor or intrigue to reel them in. Authority figures communicate indirectly through third parties or subtle suggestions. Younger audiences, bold visuals and dynamic language work best. Fourth, avoid preaching. Nobody likes being lectured. Instead, guide people toward the truth by letting them discover it for themselves. For example, if you want to expose a bad habit, mirror that behavior subtly to reveal its flaws without explicitly criticizing. Fifth, use silence strategically. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Leaving an expected topic unaddressed or staying quiet during heated moments creates intrigue and forces others to fill in the gaps, often with the conclusions you want them to draw. Sixth, balance your delivery. While grabbing attention is important, avoid going overboard. Shock tactics or flashy gimmicks can dilute your message. Keep your communication engaging but focused, ensuring your ideas remain the centerpiece. Effective communication is about influence, not control. By mastering indirect and emotionally resonant communication, and by deeply understanding your audience, you can influence others without triggering resistance. True power lies in making people believe your ideas are their own. Strategy 31. Destroy from within. The inner front strategy. One of the most striking examples of this strategy is the internal collapse of the Soviet Union. While external pressures like the Cold War certainly played a role, the real downfall came from within. Corruption, inefficiency, and widespread disillusionment slowly eroded its foundation. Leaders like Mikhail Gorbachev introduced reforms such as glasnost and perestroika to address these growing issues. But instead of strengthening the system, these measures exposed deeper flaws. Dissatisfaction among citizens and a lack of unity at the top created the perfect storm. The once mighty Soviet Union didn't fall to external enemies. It crumbled under the weight of its internal decay. The best way to weaken a strong structure isn't through direct confrontation, but by undermining it from the inside. Through subtle infiltration, strategic alliances, and creating internal dissent, you can destabilize even the most formidable opponent. This strategy relies on patience, subtlety, and the ability to work from within to expose vulnerabilities and erode unity. Here's how to do it. First, join to conquer. If someone or something stands in your way, don't attack them directly. Instead, align yourself with their values and gain their trust. Once you're on the inside, You can subtly influence their decisions, weaken their foundations, or quietly prepare to take control. Second, exploit human nature. Pay close attention to vulnerabilities, insecurities, and divisions within the system. Use these to your advantage. Befriend your opposition, gain access to sensitive information, and learn their true motivations. Sow doubt and discord. Subtly pit individuals against each other to erode their unity. Third, employ the Trojan horse strategy. Sometimes, generosity can be your most powerful weapon. By offering an unexpected act of kindness, you can lower your target's defenses, creating an opening for deeper infiltration. The idea is to present yourself as an ally while secretly advancing your agenda. Fourth, keep your plans secret. Secrecy is crucial when working from within. The more people involved in your plan, the greater the risk of exposure. To minimize leaks, involve only those who are absolutely essential. Share details on a need-to-know basis, and reveal critical steps at the last possible moment. Fifth, practice patience. This strategy takes time. Small, consistent actions will eventually destabilize the strongest system. Avoid rushing or drawing attention to yourself. Dramatic gestures might expose your intentions prematurely. Sixth, undermine morale. Low morale can break even the strongest structure. Subtly erode confidence by highlighting failures, spreading doubt, and creating a sense of futility within the group. To dismantle a system, you must first blend into it. Become part of the structure. Earn trust and work from within. Observe carefully. Identify weaknesses and divisions to exploit. Be patient. Let your influence grow over time. Use subtlety. Avoid actions that could expose your intentions. This strategy reminds us that the most profound changes often come not from direct confrontation, but from quiet, calculated actions within the system itself. True power lies in working invisibly, letting the structure collapse under its own weight. Strategy 32. Dominate while seeming to submit. The passive aggression strategy. One of the most skilled practitioners of passive aggression was Prince Clemens von Metternich, an Austrian diplomat who played a key role in European politics during the early 19th century. Metternich didn't rely on direct confrontation to achieve his goals. Instead, he mastered the art of appearing compliant while subtly manipulating events to Austria's advantage. At the Congress of Vienna, he posed as a neutral mediator, but worked behind the scenes to strengthen Austria and weaken its rivals. His calm demeanor and cooperative facade disarmed his rivals, allowing him to quietly shape Europe's post-Napoleonic order to his advantage. The most effective form of control often comes disguised as compliance. By appearing passive and agreeable, you can dominate situations while your true intentions remain hidden. In a world where direct confrontation often invites backlash, passive aggression is a powerful tool. This strategy involves cloaking your ambitions in an accommodating facade, allowing you to exert influence without sparking suspicion. First, the illusion of submission. People are less likely to resist when they believe you're going along with their plans. Use this false sense of security to guide outcomes in your favor. Pretend to relinquish control while subtly steering decisions in the direction you want. Second, disguise your true intentions. Aggression, when visible, provokes retaliation, but hidden aggression allows you to operate undetected. Third, master the art of subtle sabotage. Passive aggression often involves small acts of sabotage that are difficult to pinpoint. A colleague who promises to help but never delivers. A friend whose compliments always carry a hidden jab. A partner who delays commitments, forcing you to compromise. These small acts destabilize plans without provoking direct conflict, giving you the upper hand. Humans tend to oversimplify behavior, categorizing actions as either kind or mean. This binary thinking blinds people to the subtlety of passive aggression. When someone appears helpful or agreeable, we rarely suspect ulterior motive. Because this strategy is so common, it's essential to develop defenses. Stay aware. Notice when someone's actions don't align with their words. Look for patterns over time. Don't take it personally. Passive aggression often stems from insecurity or frustration, not personal malice. Focus on bigger priorities. Disengage. When possible, distance yourself from passive-aggressive individuals. Engaging directly often plays into their tactics. Neutralize with subtlety. For repeat offenders, mirror their behavior. If they're habitually late, arrive late yourself. This can highlight their behavior's impact. In professional or personal situations where distancing isn't an option, encourage open communication. Create an environment where the person feels safe expressing frustrations directly. This reduces their reliance on passive-aggressive behavior. The passive aggression strategy is as relevant in daily life as it is in diplomacy. Whether you're dealing with a difficult coworker, navigating a tense relationship, or managing competition, this strategy allows you to exert influence while appearing cooperative. Strategy 33. Sow uncertainty and panic through acts of terror, the chain reaction strategy. The reign of terror during the French Revolution is a prime example of this strategy. The Jacobins, a radical political faction, faced overwhelming opposition both within and outside France. Lacking the resources for a direct confrontation, they turned to fear as their weapon. Their approach was brutal but effective. Public executions of political enemies and dissenters created a climate of paranoia, leaving even their strongest opponents hesitant to act. Through psychological domination and chaos, the Jacobins maintained control, destabilizing their enemies without needing superior resources. Fear is most potent when it's unpredictable. Use it sparingly but strategically to keep opponents off balance. When you're outmatched by a stronger adversary, direct confrontation often isn't an option. That's where this strategy comes into play. First, understand the power of perception. Fear thrives on uncertainty. When people can't predict where or when the next attack will occur, they become mentally paralyzed. Their imagination amplifies the threat, often making it far worse than reality. Second, leverage emotional contagion. Emotions, especially fear, spread quickly. A single act of disruption can ripple through a group, turning a united front into chaos. Whether it's spreading rumors or creating minor inconveniences, these small acts can destabilize an entire network. Third, exploit overreaction. The goal isn't to win outright, but to provoke an overreaction. When your opponent acts out of fear or desperation, they often waste resources or reveal vulnerabilities you can exploit. Think of it like setting a trap they can't resist, and in reacting impulsively, they hand you an advantage. While this strategy is a powerful offensive tool, understanding how to defend against it is equally important. First, stay rational. Fear and panic feed impulsive decisions. When you feel yourself reacting emotionally, take a step back and assess the situation logically. This will help you avoid falling into the trap of overreaction. Second, disarm the chaos. Seek information rather than reacting immediately. The unknown is what makes terror so effective. Focus on gathering information and uncovering the source of the disruption. Once you bring clarity to the situation, the fear diminishes and you regain control. Third, maintain composure. Calm, deliberate responses are kryptonite to this strategy. By showing that you cannot be easily rattled, you disarm the psychological power your opponent wields. The chain reaction strategy is a powerful reminder of how fear and chaos can destabilize even the strongest opposition. When used sparingly and with precision, it creates confusion and weakens adversaries. But its true strength lies in subtlety. To master it, you must stay calm, adaptable, and always one step ahead, both when wielding it and when defending against it.